Welcome to Hey there, welcome to Intuitive Keto with Trina Krug. Today we are going to talk about a topic that is a little bit touchy, and that's the phrase, "that's not keto." So to start with, I want to let you know that I'm a moderator and an admin for a couple really big Facebook groups, and these are recipe groups where people can post low carb and keto recipes. A lot of fun. But sometimes when someone, myself or someone else, posts a recipe that might have some carrots poking out, like in a pot roast, there's a ton of people that jump on that and say, that's not keto, it's too high in carbs, you shouldn't have the carrots in there, and it's just a big fiasco. And it's unfortunate for people that don't either know any better or they're new to keto, and then they read something like that and they think, oh my gosh, I can't have carrots now. So most of you probably know that keto was originally designed as a nutritional program for epilepsy, but it has since, more so in the last couple of years, turned into a weight loss program, which is great because it works really well for that. But when we're inside the weight loss arena, keto is really focused on inflammation. And so the foods that we eat and everything along those lines really are focusing on reducing the inflammation in our bodies. And when we reduce the inflammation, that's when the weight begins to be released, okay? So I want you to think about the term "that's not keto" a little bit more in terms of, is it an inflammatory food versus the carb count initially anyway? Now, what's an inflammatory food? Well, there's a lot of them, but some foods that contain things like sugar, high fructose corn syrup, trans fats, vegetable oils, some vegetable oils. Now with vegetable oils, you may or may not know, one of the problems with that is the high amounts of omega-6s compared to omega-3s. So in the standard American diet, the omega-6 is giant compared to what we intake for omega-3s. And omega-6s are more inflammatory, and so vegetable oils kind of fall into that category. Some other inflammatory foods are things like refined carbohydrates. And generally in the process of refining the carbohydrates, they take out the fiber. And the problem with that is that the glycemic index goes up. And fiber is really good for stabilizing blood sugar. It's good for regularity for your digestive system. So there's lots of reasons that we should be having fiber in our diet. A few other things are processed meats, excessive alcohol, gluten, grains, all that kind of stuff. So those are just kind of some examples of inflammatory foods. You know what's not on that list? Carrots. So I invite you to think about this. When you're looking at a food and trying to determine whether or not it's keto, I want you to ask yourself two things. The first one is it an inflammatory food? If it is, then think twice about whether or not you want to include it in your keto diet. And I say your keto diet because keto is different for everyone. And I'm a huge advocate of things like cyclical keto, which is horrendous to say, and intuitive keto. So is it inflammatory? Think about that. The second thing I want you to think about is, did it grow in the earth? And is it just a little bit higher in carbs than something else? In which case, maybe it's not so bad to think about, okay? Last I want to leave you with is ketosis is a metabolic state. It's not a food group. I'm sure you've heard that before. Now I want to dive into what I have right here. So I have 9 things that are all roughly 100 grams. And I say roughly because I kind of measured them and weighed a couple of them, but it's, this is more for demonstration purposes, but it's pretty close. So 100 grams is roughly 3.5 ounces. So for, let's see, the carrots, the onions, bell peppers, pecans, and cashews, it was about 2/3 of a cup. Blueberries, it was about a cup. Here's a small peach. The medium peach is normally considered about 100 grams, so you can get a little bit bigger than this. For the avocado, here's a super small one. 100 grams is about 2/3 of an avocado, so this is probably close. Chocolate chip cookies, keto chocolate chip cookies. There should be 5 in here, and there was 5 in here this morning, but my kids got into them not knowing I was going to use them today, and they devoured them. So I only have 3 here, but to be fair to everything else, there should be 5 of the homemade keto chocolate chip cookies. Okay, so let's dive into what the net carb count is for each of these. And I have my notes here because my brain was not firing on enough cylinders today to be able to remember it all. All right, so for pecans, 100 grams of pecans is 4 net carbs. For bell peppers, we have about 5.5. For avocados, it's just under 6. Carrots come in at about 7.2 net grams. Onions, 7.3. Chocolate chip cookies, these are for 5 at 7.5. So remember, there's only 3 here, but for 5 cookies, it's about 7.5. For a medium peach, that is about 8.5. Blueberries, we have at about 11.6. And lastly, cashews come in at a whopping 26.7. So these are pretty high in carbs. And most people say stay away from cashews, they're too high in carbs. I love cashews, so I always have them here. I don't eat a ton. I certainly wouldn't eat this many at a time, but I do, as I'm walking through the pantry, sometimes I'll grab, a couple just because I love them and a few isn't going to hurt me. Okay, so what does all this mean? So I put them in order of low to high. Okay, so the pecans are the lowest, the cashews are the highest. Now let's talk about these two, some fruit. When people are new to keto or they've been on it for a while, but they've been doing super strict and they want to, expand a little bit, and someone told them they shouldn't have any fruit, but now they might want some, and they ask, what fruit can I have? A common answer is, well, you can have berries. So have blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, or raspberries, stay away from everything else other than berries. Well, if you look again at these two, the peaches, 100 grams of peach versus 100 grams of blueberries, the peaches are less, and it was, if I recall, 8.5 and 11.6. So peaches are actually less carbs than blueberries, yet people are told that they should have blueberries and not peaches. So let's also look, we have our carrots versus chocolate chip cookies. Now, who knows? Will you sit down and have 5 at a time? Maybe, sometimes I do. But carrots are less carbs than blueberries. They're less carbs than, a couple homemade chocolate chip cookies. The point of all this is to say, to do your own research. And just because someone says, carrots aren't keto, doesn't mean that they aren't. And there's lots of lists out there. I have my own in terms of food lists for, foods to avoid, or, shopping lists, foods to shop for keto. Most of those are pure opinion. They're the opinion of the person who wrote the list. There really is no official keto food list. And, it's, if you go by what a lot of people say in terms of you can't have carrots, you can't have onions, and some people say throw out all root vegetables. And, a lot of root vegetables are incredibly healthy. And I'm a big advocate, as I said before, of cyclical keto, which I cannot say fast. And for me, what that entails is strict keto, about 5, sometimes 6 days a week, and then either a low carb paleo or higher carb keto 1 to 2 days. And on those days, I'll have sweet potatoes and other things like that. But carrots, onions, peppers, these are all things that are incredibly healthy and can easily fit into a lifelong keto diet. Because again, I'm an advocate for lifelong intuitive keto, which is finding a version of keto that works for you and your goals, and not just this thing that everybody else does. And so again, let's recap the 2 questions to ask yourself. If someone says a food isn't keto, or you're wondering if it's something that you can eat, ask yourself, is it an inflammatory food? And ask yourself if it's something that grew in the earth and is something that's like a healthy carrot that might be a little bit higher in carbs than something else, but it doesn't mean that you can't eat it. So I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure that you subscribe down below and hit the bell button so that you're always notified when a new episode comes out.